Good evening. Welcome to the Malden Board of Appeals. Today is February 21st, 2023. The Malden Board of Appeal will hold a public hearing Wednesday, February 21st. No, it's February 21st, 2024. The Malden Board of Appeal will hold a public hearing Wednesday, February 21st, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. at Malden City Hall, 215 Pleasant Street, room 106, the Herbert L. Jackson Council Chambers, Malden, Mass. On the following named petitions. Before we get this meeting started, a couple of different things need to be mentioned. First we'll approve the minutes from, first we'll take the roll call.
Kramer?
Here.
Pauyo?
Yeah. Turn your mics on, I can't.
King? Here. Chu? Here. Thank you.
I don't know, I can't even tell from here if they're, usually I can control them, but it's dead. Just make sure your mics are red, not flashing. Push it again. Tap it, see if it works. I don't know what's going on. So I'm gonna have to shut mine off so you can try it now. All right. Yep. So the first order of business is to approve the minutes from the last meeting. Has everybody had a chance to review those minutes? Yes. Do you have to do a roll call on that?
Well, we need to make a motion to approve the minutes.
Oh.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you.
Second.
I've done it a couple of times.
On motion to approve from Pauyo, second by King. Okay, obviously Pauyo.
Yes.
Sherwin?
Yes.
King?
Yes.
Susan? Chu? Yes. Thank you. And Kramer?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion, all in favor. Minutes are approved.
Okay, and so before we hear this first petition, one of our members needs to recuse themselves. So Steve Royal won't be a voting member tonight. We're down a few people, being school vacation week. Susan Shu will be a voter. She's an alternate member that will be a voting member tonight. That leaves us as 4 voting members tonight, just so you know. First, I'll read before you start speaking. Yep, you're good. Yep. At least sit there, but I think you can. Sorry. Petition 24-001 by Lourdharry Pauyo. I'm sorry if I messed up the Pauyo. Seeking a variance under Code of City of Malden as amended Title 12, MCC 12.12.190 F1C, specifically the location of a marijuana establishment within 75 feet of any residential use as per Plans CMID-063016-2023 at the property known as and numbered 28 Broadway, Malden, Mass, and also known by City Assessor's Parcel ID 123-481-125. Just make sure your microphone's on. I don't know what's going on. I usually am able to control them, but I can't tonight. Just tap it and see if it. Nothing. Just. If I shut my right now. Oh, here he comes. There he is. Mic's on, none of the mics except for mine. I can't control them at all. You just want to be on TV.
All set.
Thank you.
Hello?
That's better.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. My name is Attorney Patrick McDonald. I have offices at 479 Eastern Avenue here in Malden, and I represent the petitioner on this application, Driss Corporation, and with me this evening is one of its principals, Mr. Christopher Fevry. We are asking, before anything else gets done, to table this matter. I made Clerk Bartlett aware of that. I apologize. It was somewhat last minute, having made her aware of it only Tuesday. But the reason for that request is twofold. Before I came here tonight, there was one reason, but I have a second. And the second one, quite frankly, is I'm now learning that we have a short board tonight, only 4 voting members, and in all candor, I'm rarely comfortable with going forward on a matter where I don't have a complete board, whether that's the Board of Appeal, the License Board, the Planning Board, it doesn't matter. I prefer to have the full board when votes are needed, and especially in this venue where you need a supermajority, 4 out of 5, and there are only 4 voting members tonight. But the reason initially I had made Clerk Bartlett aware that we'd be seeking a tabling was that we've been working closely with Ward Councilor Simonelli on this matter. He's very much in favor of this project, and he currently has a paper before the City Council. It's in the early stages of that process, but the paper essentially seeks to amend the enabling ordinance, specifically with respect to the issue that is before the Board of Appeals on this variance application, that being the buffer zone for marijuana establishments in the city. And the paper doesn't look to change the buffer zone. What it looks to do is create a new, what I would refer to, administrative avenue of appeal for an aggrieved party, whether that's a petitioner or an abutter or anybody else, that would provide for review by the City Council on this particular issue, on any decision of this board, again, if a party felt himself or herself to be aggrieved by that decision, rather than the current situation, which is governed by Chapter 40A, which says an aggrieved party by a decision of this permit granting authority always has the right to take that matter to Superior Court. That right wouldn't go away, of course. This would add an interim appellate level of review here in the city by the City Council. Councilor Simonelli feels that is a better way to do it, especially with this kind of new territory that the city is in with respect to licensing of establishments. We'd like to give that matter time to play out at the City Council level. Ward Councilor Simonelli would like to see that happen before we have the substantive hearing. So we're asking for the tabling. In conjunction, I've spoken to Commissioner Miller, spoken to Ward Councilor Simonelli. It doesn't appear that that matter can work its way through that process in the time frame that we might prefer as the petitioner here, which my initial preference would be the first available date that the Board of Appeal can accommodate. But in consulting with Councilor Simonelli, it's going to take longer than that. It's going to take more than a month, and it might take more like 2 to 3 months. It's hard for me to give the board an exact date because the time frames are outside of all of our control as a practical matter. But we are requesting the tabling. Those are the reasons for it. I'd suggest a minimum of 2 months, perhaps 3, if the board's inclined to grant it. I would add that if the board is inclined to grant the tabling, the petitioner would be waiving any statutorily mandated timeframes for action by the board, so the board wouldn't have to be concerned about approving by failing to take action within a certain period of time. Those timeframes would be waived. And I believe Councilor Simonelli would like to address the board briefly on that as well, if the board's okay with that.
Yep.
Good evening, board members. Councilor Chris Simonelli from Ward 7, 90 Bowden Street. And yeah, everything the councilor just told you is the truth. The situation is that, I kind of arrived late on the scene with the whole cannabis thing and putting this thing together. And I know it's been a work in progress here, and people have been trying to mold things as they've been moving along. But unfortunately, it's a hot potato subject, and I truly believe and always have that I think that it's too restrictive as it sits anyway. But I'm not looking to change any language on anything. I'm looking so it gives you guys a break too, because sometimes I feel like your hands are tied too on this subject matter. And and I truly believe that to be an effective leader in your community, you should have an active role on something as a hot topic as this is, on where it goes, if it goes in at all. This particular petitioner, this is like his 3rd time in that same location. So, and I have expressed things early on the whole cannabis things, on some language that I'd like to see changed. But for now, my goal and intent would be to discharge the paper from its existence, which was dead in committee, but the time frame has lapsed, so it makes it alive now. So I'd like to discharge it, and then hopefully we can hear it the same night it's discharged. That would be great, and move forward to joint planning and city council joint committee so that we can hear on it. Because I believe that, particularly this situation that they're dealing with in my neighborhood, the buffer zone seems to be the real stickler point here. And, I've got residents that are in the buffer zone, from what I'm told, I'm waiting to see the letters just like you guys are, that are in favor of it. So, and I know that there's a lot of people in my neighborhood that is a, social equity type of neighborhood. The person getting it's a social equity license and minority trying to get this in. So it makes sense in all different aspects, except for some of these little fine-tuned verbiages inside this ordinance. And I think that we, at some point, everybody would be happy, and we can get these things out there so we can actually even start generating money for the city, which towns are way ahead, cities and towns are way ahead of us on. I mean, look, it's voted in. You know, I'm not privileged enough to smoke it anymore, but, you know, that doesn't mean that people don't indulge in that, just like they do alcohol, and I've got enough of them in my neighborhood, so I don't really see the difference. But anyway, I wanted to give you guys, you know, the courtesy and just a little bird's eye view of what's going on, and I would hate these guys to, you know, rush this process through. Well, this is happening at the same time over here, and then put more stress on you guys. That's not the way I do business. So if you could grant the petitioner a, you know, postponement, or however the attorney would like to do it, I just think it would be good for all parties. I appreciate your time tonight. Thank you very much for your cooperation. Any questions for me?
Nope.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
So I think that if we table this, it's not gonna be a month. So that if any motion is made, I think that maybe it should be looked at as a max amount of time. Like, you have to come back within X amount of time. And I know it's not gonna happen in a month.
I guess a question for maybe Adam, procedurally, is there like any detriment to them just withdrawing it and bringing it back for appeal when they're ready?
They'd have to republish it, I believe. It'd have to go through the publication process again.
They wouldn't have to republish it if it got tabled?
No, there would be a decision that would just put everyone on notice about when it gets tabled to. So I think if
Okay.
they withdraw it, if we let them withdraw it, they'd have to go through the republication process. That would be my guess.
So that costs money.
Okay. All the butters get notice of the decision, right, in terms of the new date?
No, do they get notice, if we just issue a decision that we're tabling, I don't think that goes out, does it?
Doesn't have to, but we could if you want to.
Would we require the petitioner to notify the abutters of the tabling?
Usually we would just send them,
We'll do it, okay,
that way we would charge it.
okay.
I guess what would happen if it got tabled again at a later time?
Well, that would be up for
It'd be
us.
a board vote.
Okay, and then notice would go out again? I'm just concerned about like the abutters getting notice, both like in favor and like people opposed, because,
Getting tired of coming
yeah.
over and over again. Yeah, I mean,
That's why I
Just
think
the
we
issue.
should have just a max amount, like
up
to
but I don't
4
wanna
months.
But I guess you say up to
extend
4 months, then how do people know, like, if they want to come? I mean, there's some people come, like, who are in the crowd today, I don't know, like, if they're,
I see your point there.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Like, people need to have notice, that's just my only concern.
Well, I think we give them a definite date if we say 2 months, and then just 2 months, we see where we are.
Okay,
And then, I wouldn't be inclined to give them any past 2 months. I think it's a little excessive for a zoning matter, but I would have no problem with 2 months now.
I think anything longer, I mean, they should have an idea of what the city council is thinking of by the end of that time.
I don't see it happening in 2 months.
I don't think so, I think they might need to file a home rule petition if they're changing the zoning procedure and like adding an interim step between ZBA and
That's not up.
the court.
We don't want to have this hanging, I mean, forever. So, I mean, if that's going to happen, and then at that point, they know they've got 6 months or 8 months before they get a home rule petition done and the rest of it, then it's going to be, should be withdrawn and redone. So I'd just say a couple of months, we should have some idea of what's going to happen. The procedural, the city council procedure at that point, that will have been, all the magic stuff they do will have been, started.
Can you hear this conversation, Attorney McDonald?
I'm sorry, Jim?
Can you hear this conversation?
Yes,
what we're
yes.
discussing?
I'm not an expert on city council procedure. As described to me, the paper needs to come out now for a vote of the board, which will occur a vote of the council, which will occur next week. The council, in its discretion, can both agree to allow the paper to come out and substantively vote on the paper, one way or the other. If they vote to approve it, it then has to go to a joint meeting of subcommittee of the zoning subcommittee of the city council and the planning board, where the planning board is given an opportunity to chime in, and as a consequence of that meeting, a recommendation of some kind, one way or the other, is then made back to the city council, and then the city council they're not bound by that recommendation, but they can have the substantive vote on the actual zoning change. And certainly what happens at the city council probably is more flexible because they meet on a weekly basis, but we all know the planning board only meets once a month, and that's probably going to be the biggest delay associated with the process. But I appreciate the board's position on not having this languish or linger indefinitely. I don't think 60 days is an unreasonable timeframe. I wouldn't commit to it all being done within 60 days because, again, these things are outside the control of the commissioner, but it's certainly possible that we could be in we could have knowledge of exactly what the council has decided because it will have all been accomplished within 60 days. It may take a little bit longer, and that may be something that we need to address with the board on the, if we're granted a 60-day continuance, on that 60-day continuance.
So I'm pretty confident it won't happen in 2 months.
I'll defer to you, Chairman.
So you have an option. Someone can make a motion to.
Yes, it's up to us to decide how long it's going to be. I mean,
Right,
that's what it comes down to.
but not wanting it to languish in the fear of people forgetting about it,
No, because I mean,
not showing up.
like-
Or you can withdraw without prejudice and come back when it does all go through. But then you would have to do the advertise it again.
We have to refile an application, I think, as
Right.
well, so.
I also wonder too, if the whole procedure changes and if your publication notice may have to be updated to reflect that, if there's a new change in the procedure of the law.
Well, as I said, Member Sherwin, I don't believe the paper that's before the council,
I'm not referring to that paper, I'm referring to your notice in the paper, your advertisement, the warning for this meeting, as we say in Vermont, a warning. I'm wondering if that may have to be updated to reflect, if there is a change in the procedure, if legally you would have to somehow update that to reflect that now there's a new, if city council
If this
changes.
change happens,
Yeah,
if this change happens, as I said, my understanding is it adds a new layer of appeal
Yeah.
to the process. I don't know that the avenues of appeal are included, they're not included in the notice that goes out. The notice that goes out to the abutters and is published simply says that the petition seeking a variance of this particular section of the ordinance. It doesn't go on to further address. When a decision is made, naturally, the notice from the Board of Appeal advises the applicant of appellate rights in the body of the decision that's issued by the board. It doesn't generally send those things out to abutters, if I may be mistaken about that, but.
no, you might be right, I'm just thinking a change in procedure, maybe, I might be doing your job for you, but it just might be something to think about, because.
Well, the board decides what the public notice says, and if the board, after any action by the city council, feels that new notices need to go out because of that action, the petitioner will make new mailings. Although the petitioner doesn't do the mailings, the board does, but the petitioner could, republish if the board requires it. And we're willing to do that, whatever the board, for purposes of notice, whatever the board tells us to do, we'll do. To address your concern, Chairman, that you don't personally feel that this could be done in 60 days, the only other suggestion I could make would be maybe a 90-day postponement. 90 days would be acceptable to the petitioner if the board was so inclined. Or in or within 90 days, you never know, it could happen more quickly, and an opportunity might arise to get in back before the board sooner than 90 days, so I'd like to keep that option open if possible. It all depends on what kind of agendas the board has over the next 2 or 3 months. If your agendas are going to dictate whether or not a matter can be placed for hearing on any given night as well, so.
based on that, anybody want to make a motion?
I'm always ready to make a
Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that we allow the petitioner to table his request for appeal for 2 months, at which time they can come before us and we will evaluate the situation at that time.
With a tolling, with a requirement that they toll the requirements.
Right.
The statute.
Yes, petitioner waives statutorily mandated timeframes for action by the board.
And home rule petition comes in when?
We don't care about that.
Usually it has to be approved like by the council first. I don't know if there's like in Malden, if maybe the mayor would need to sign off on anything as well. Like, I don't know if the mayor has like veto rights or anything like that over a council vote.
No.
No, then, I think it's just sort of like a question of the procedure. Like, do you know if the council would have to file a home rule petition with like the Attorney General's office?
No, if the paper, as it stands now, it gets regularly discharged, you need 6 votes to discharge the paper. You need 8 to control, to ordain. So even if the mayor had veto rights, 8 votes would overrule his veto. So, but the time frame is if it comes out of committee now with the 6 votes, then, it depends on which way the council goes. They free will all those folks up there. They might say, hey, I've been waiting for this paper to come out of being discharged because I don't like the way this language says or that language says. So it would go into ordinance at that point. And then we would schedule a joint ordinance and planning board hearing together to make any of those changes, if any, to be heard through that process, then back out to the city council floor, to the whole council itself to be voted in and ordained as an ordinance. The time frame for something like that, I mean, I was talking to Nelson Miller back there and, talking about the time frame as far as notifying all the abutters again and everything. I mean, I'm going to work extremely hard on this to move, fast track this, because like I said, I think it's been held up long enough and kicked around. So you have my word on moving fast with this paper. But, you know, I like what, your council member just said, that if if they withdraw without prejudice, then they can come back at any time, I thought. Or if you guys want to say, hey, you know what, come back in 2 months and we'll see where everything stands. And if you need another extension for another month or two, and I think that would be easy on the petitioner too, because he's been spending an awful lot of money to try and make this thing happen. It's only fair to him. So that being said, I think that would be the best way of going about it. And we've got legal already working on things too, but this is a standard procedure that we do on the council, out of parliamentary rules of procedure and Robert's Rules of Order. And, we weigh in with the city solicitor's office on how it's moving. It doesn't need a home rule petition or anything like that, so we wouldn't have to kick it up. So it would all be done in-house. So again, this is just a way of saying, hey, look, can we do this better? Because myself, and I know that there's several other councils that think it's just too restrictive in a close, densely populated community like Malden. So I don't know if that helps. But I would say the time frame would be anywhere between 4 to 5 months, to be honest with you. Have it all wrapped up that, we won't have any of these problems. Or fails before that.
So 4 to 5 months?
I would say 4 to 5 months.
That's about what I was thinking too, which I think is,
You
I can't make a motion, but I think that's a little too long to table something.
Well, but that's too long. I mean, at that point,
I mean, you could go back, you could say, come back in 2 months and see where you are from there, or they withdraw without prejudice, so they can come before you at any time at that point.
That's what I would suggest, that they would just withdraw without prejudice, yeah.
then it's time for them to go back to the neighborhood again.
Yeah.
If it looks like it's gonna be that long.
People forget.
But they'll know it within 2 months. They should know.
Fair.
Okay, so my motion's, you just need a second, right?
I'll second it.
Can you say the motion again?
You want me to do it?
Either
Do you have
or,
it written
just
down?
read it back.
Do you want to read it back? You can read it back, because you're the scribe, and you will.
Motion by King to allow to table the petitioner's request for 2 months, at which time the petition will be reevaluated. We have the next 2 months, April 17th would be that meeting. Just while I have the dates out, is that acceptable?
As I said, we're agreeable to what the board can accommodate under the circumstances. 60 days to the April 17th meeting for a fresh look at the petition and the process. It makes sense. And I'll defer to the board's more extensive knowledge about how long this sort of thing can take. It may very well be a 4 or 5 month matter, but I think we'll know where we stand if it's something that's likely to go through or doesn't have a chance of going through within 60 days. I think there's more than enough time to learn that. And the petitioner can then decide to move forward substantively at that point, or perhaps something else. But
Okay, so there's a motion that needs a second.
I second it. With, again, the tolling that we talked about, just the tolling of the notice requirements.
Absolutely.
State the,
They have to do a written agreement that any of the our timeline for completing it is extended or told while on.
All right, so we'll go back. So we will, motion by King, second by Sherwin to allow to table the request for 2 months, at which time the petition will be reevaluated. The next date would be April 17th, and we would ask that the petitioner sign a tolling agreement extending an all time and waiving the statutory time requirements.
that's all acceptable to the petitioner. If the board has a particular form it uses, otherwise tomorrow I can send Clerk Bartlett an email confirming what I represented tonight, that we're waiving statutorily mandated timeframes for board action on the petition.
All right. Okay, now we will take the vote, okay? All right, so we'll vote. Chu?
Yes.
King?
Yes.
Sherwin?
Yes.
Kramer?
yes.
Thank you. All in favor, petition is tabled until April 17th.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks.
Have a good evening.
That was our only petition of the evening. Would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
You're on a roll tonight. I second.